Hey there. So, my next guest tells us about the many hard fought struggles he's had to go through in life in order to learn about himself as a person and to get himself where he is in this world today. And, to hear the level of commitment he still has for what he's working for, despite the fact that he's had trials and challenges, is so inspiring. I know you're all going to love this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have James Peterson. Hey there, James. How's it going?
I'm very well. And yourself, there, Mr. Carlton?
It's a beautiful sunny day in Las Vegas. How about yourself?
Oh man, it's always beautiful here.
Where's here?
Here would happen to be Starkville, Mississippi. I am currently attending Mississippi State University full time. My major is Information Technology Services with a minor in Japanese. So
Very cool. I normally try to relate to my guests based on where they lived, and I have been through Mississippi,
yes, sir.
and it was nothing but swamp, as I recall.
I completely understand, man. It's the birthplace. It's definitely the birthplace of music and the blues. So if you want to hear some good blues and a guy on a stool just going at it for hours on his guitar, down here is the place to be.
I love it. All right, James. So I like to get this show started just right into it. So why don't you begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Um, as I said before, I'm a full-time student. I am also United States Marine Corps veteran. I did serve 4 years. I was a winger, hung out with a lot of the wing guys. Immediately after the fact, I came back and I joined Honeywell Technology Solutions. I pretty much I went from that to being a private contractor and then decided to go to school. My purpose here as of today is, of course, I've been an avid gamer my entire life, and gaming, of course, not only is it seen as a source of entertainment, but I also turn around and see it as a more positive outlet. Of course, there's been this entire stigma that people have about how gamers are not successful, how they're lazy, and so on and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. But I can honestly say, with gaming as a passion, I've beat the stigma and more, and that's just about it.
Beautiful. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Before we do that, I'm going to ask you a question just like I ask everybody else. So if you've watched any of my episodes, you know what this question is. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, James?
I say about firm 7. I'd say about
Why
a
is
firm
that?
7. I turn to say a firm 7 is because of course as of late I've been like spent like my past 2 years like knee deep into like my meat and potatoes of all of my studies. So I really haven't had time to go and veer off and venture into anything else like I usually would.
Okay, fantastic. Now, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast, so I do need your gaming credit here, James. When did you first start playing video games?
Uh Man, that's so far back. I would say Galaga. That was like I was age 8 years old. It was my mom's favorite. It was my mom's favorite game, and my mom had the highest score. So from that point all the way up to like I was 12, I made that like my goal in life. I spent like $1 a week trying to beat her. So that was where it started.
Okay, and I'm assuming your gaming career has continued since then. You've kept playing
Oh,
games.
oh yes, sir. I'm definitely an avid fan. I actually play on Xbox now, so my gamer tag is Monster Forever. Of course, it evolved in like, of course, we went from 2D. I've played across the Nintendo 64, the GameCube. Man, I've touched so many consoles. Is man, that is
Okay.
a
All
it's
right.
kind of long. Go
And
back.
what are you playing today then?
Today I was actually hopping on a bit of Warframe. It's a game by Digital Extremes. I was actually turning around and making my mastery rank 30 test so that I could go ahead and get that out of the way. But aside from that, it's definitely the game that has me stuck right now is Vampire. I really love how the story arcs out. I love how you have the power of a choice. Not of course not many games give you that, and Dr. Jonathan Reed in that game is pretty awesome. So
I love it. All right. Now, kind of one more gaming question, then we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. But, if you've been playing a long time, if you had
Yes,
to
sir.
pick one game as your all-time favorite, which one is it?
That will most definitely be Devil May Cry 3.
Why three over the rest?
Three over the rest being that three at the time it came out on PlayStation 2. And Dante, if you know the story, you know the story arcs. Like Dante is like such a character. Like the dude is such an awesome, stylish character that this right here is the type of guy that you see in anime who wouldn't want to be like him, who wouldn't want to turn around and have his job. And that right there was in the mind of like little 12-year-old me. Like, hey, why would I want to be in school when I could just slay demons? But that was definitely the game that caught my heart and kind of made me want to delve into figuring out what gaming was more instead of single player. Hey, that was actually around the time I set up my first LAN to learn multiplayer. So yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. So, James, the mission of this show is to dispel the myth of the lazy, unmotivated basement dweller. All right. And you brought that up yourself. And so the fact that I have you on, you're a full-time student, that's fantastic because you right there are disproving that myth by doing this. But I'd like to discuss a little bit about your background first, and we'll get into what you're doing in your schooling. So, can you give me your professional background? I know you said you joined the Marine Corps, correct? And thank you for your service.
Yes, sir.
And,
Thank you,
how
sir.
did that go, and where did you go from there?
I've always had this love for technology. It's something I've had like in my entire lifespan. In 8th grade, I won my first computer and I was completely obsessed with dismantling it. And man, you should have seen how angry my mom was at me like later on that day. But I've always like, of course, technology by definition is any tool that is made to turn around and make somebody's life easier. And of course, we all know the negative stigmas that turn around and come behind technology, but a lot of people don't really pay attention to the good because it's so much inside their daily lives. I mean, social media itself is a technology that's used to connect people. And, we don't immediately think about it because it's something that we do so commonplace. So I personally wanted to be involved, and personally wanted to be involved in actually putting together said technology. I originally went to school for computer science after I left the Marine Corps, and I switched majors. I went over to ITS, and I realized when I first actually got my actual job, I work as a student worker for the Y Center that is here. It's a veterinarian hospital, but my primary job is these guys have Microsoft Surface Pro laptops, roughly like 2K each, and we update their warranties. If they have any major assets that need to be fixed, like the computers or printers or like even some medical equipment themselves, it turns of course we look at it, we put in the warranty and we fix it. But in all that in all the opportunities I've had, the reason why I want to turn around and say that this is a major that has grown on me. And the reason why I say that is because it took in the middle of being in the midst of it. Of course, I immediately came into the major and I was like, all right, cool. I want to turn around and do computer things, but I had no idea which way it was I wanted to go because there were so many fields in technology, in information technology, IT. So, so I tried my best at coding. I'm kind of good at coding, but I realized I wasn't the best at it. But I did, but of course I thought back to exactly what it was I was doing as a kid. Was like not only taking apart computers, but I also did the same thing with broken PS2s and broken GameCubes. It was essentially like as a kid, it essentially came down to if your console was broken and you needed it fixed, if I could probably get the other broken PC that you had, I can fix it for you. Absolutely no problem. And that turned around and just became a love of mine, just breaking things down and figuring out exactly what works, what does it, what can make it better, and how does it apply to you.
Beautiful. Okay. And what is your exact major now in school?
My exact major now is I'm going for a bachelor's in information technology services. I will be graduating in May with a bachelor's in that and 2 minors, one in Japanese and the other is in business administration. So
beautiful. And what's your plan once you graduate? May is not that far from now.
Oh, of course, it's not that far out. I'm actually planning on moving over into a new townhouse as soon as I'm through with this one. So, yay! Not too many roommates anymore. I'm actually applying to a couple of jobs that are up at to a couple of jobs that are up at state. I have a couple of people that are pretty much in my corner that I work with across the years that I've developed rapport with, and I'm hoping to either secure an occupation up at Mississippi State or at one of my favorite repair spots that's out here called Starkville. It's called Starkville Computer Repair. But I pretty much immediately after school, I want to go out and not turn around and lose the things that I learned, but just build and expand upon them more.
Beautiful. Okay. And then, after that, what's your longer term goal? Because, not everybody's just working for a job, right?
Yes, sir. My longer term goal is to, of course, exactly like I said. Well, of course, I've had this avid love of technology. Primarily, I would like to take all of this information that I've learned from school, that I would like to use it to apply it to my actual Twitch stream itself, which is Monster Forever underscore. And I want to be able to just entertain people using the ability of gaming. A lot of people turn around and see us as just being like little casual potatoes sitting there having a good time, but a lot of people don't pay attention to who watches us, if that makes sense. And it came through being an audience member in many streams, and including like live podcasts such as yours, that I began to turn around and realize that it's not that over half the time it's not even necessarily the game that the person's playing, it's the person that's playing it that provides the entertainment. And deep down inside, as much as I love technology, I would like to apply it to be that guy whenever someone is having a bad day. Hey, let's turn around and check out what this guy over here is doing and get a couple of laughs, something like that. That's just always been something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. So
All right. Fantastic. So you have a Twitch stream. When did that start? When did you do that?
I recently started up the Twitch channel earlier this year. I actually didn't even have a laptop up until like August that year. So I immediately put the channel up, and I was recording straight from my Xbox. So as I put the streams out, I didn't necessarily have any direction for it. And now that I actually have one, like, I'm actually glad I'm able to talk to you, and I'm actually able to keep and maintain a lot of my streams now. So I've been doing test streams as of late, trying to configure it together using Streamlabs. But as the schedule develops and my schedule for school develops, I will have a schedule that's put out on the page itself.
All right, wonderful. Now, James, you've accomplished a lot in your life so far. The fact that you made it through service and then you've had positions and you're going back to school, that is incredible. And so many people you fall out. They don't necessarily follow that same path. So I'd like to ask you, what makes you special? What makes you unique that you were able to kind of push forward like this?
Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I don't feel that I'm special at all, sir. I believe that I bleed and I breathe the same way as the rest of you. You just have to find your why, if that makes sense. Exactly why do you get out of bed at like 4 in the morning even though you don't want to? Exactly why do you turn around and hit that last pull up even though you know that your body's hurting? Exactly why do you want to go and do that last quarter of a mile even though your lungs are screaming at you right now? It's something I believe that's inside of everybody, and that right there is just legit sheer willpower. Exactly. Like, I can't phrase it any better than this. It's something I tell my friends a lot. It doesn't matter what it is you find on planet Earth. Every person, place, thing, it all turned around and started with one thing, which is an idea. Somebody had to come up with a name for it. Somebody had to come up with a proper conjugation. Somebody had to piece together exactly what it is this thing is going to do. You just need to figure out exactly why, what drives you forward.
Love it. And so since this is the gamerpreneur and you're my interviewee, what's your why?
My why is definitely my little sister Pearl. She's 3 years old. She's like a little bundle of joy in my life. Up until she was born, up until she was born, I will admit I was kind of a lone wolf, and a lot of things, and a lot of times I made movements. I just thought about, hey, exactly what can I do for myself? What can I do for B? What can I do to secure this for myself? But as soon as she was born, my entire perception changed. It was okay. If I decide to do this here, exactly what does this little one think of me? Or if I decide I want to go to this school here, exactly what is my little sister going to think? And just knowing that somebody was looking at me, and it wasn't somebody that that I admired. It wasn't the notion of having somebody to look at me to admire me. It's the notion of, hey, that I had somebody that was looking at me, and they're at some point going to look up to me. What do I want to leave behind for them? And that's what changed everything for me.
That's beautiful. Wonderful. Okay. Now, James, I'd like you to go back in time with me for a second, if you will. So we'll go back to the date that you were discharged. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And if you could go back in time, and you could talk to little James back then, not too long ago, right?
Yes, sir.
And you could give him all the advice, all the information, tell him everything that was going to happen to him over the next period of time up to today. But there was one thing he had to know. What is that one thing?
Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. My grandmother, well, my grandfather actually used to try to say it best. He said it didn't matter where you go, there was always going to be a bull, because there was gonna be some mess wherever you go. And exactly what we were talking about earlier, as to finding your why. You have to turn around and make sure that why that you're hanging on to is strong enough to weather a lot of things that's going to get in your way. Because us as humans, we prepare for a lot. And I definitely remember me back then. Anything that I didn't know a who, what, when, where, why to, I saw as a surprise, and I didn't like surprises then. But over time, if it was something I learned that I could definitely teach little me, is that you can't prepare for everything, and you're just gonna have to keep moving forward through it.
Okay. It's been different having gone through the military, because I work veterans all the time, and they
Yes,
know
sir.
civilians are a different breed, right? How
Yes,
how do you
sir.
think it's different from your perspective?
Um, I would definitely say it's something I still struggle with to this day, and that is dealing with the fact that is that you're pretty much taught throughout your entire career of hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. You live everything so fast paced, like you live so high speed and low drag. To when I actually got my discharge papers, I realized that I had like 3 hours of downtime, and I had absolutely nothing. Like, I freaked out because I didn't know what to do with all of that free time. um Man, is how do I put it? I have I do appreciate my entire career in the service, because it's definitely taught me to go and think ahead. But of course, I do notice, being in the civilian sector, of course not a lot of people do that. Of course not a lot of people do that. Whereas I typically have, if we try to plan out something throughout the day, I'm immediately looking at contingencies. If I turn and told my roommate the same thing, he's probably going to 9 out of 10 bring up something that completely went over my head that I missed, and that one little thing is going to turn around and just bother me throughout all of the day about it. So it's little details we definitely turn around and notice that separates us.
Certainly. Okay. Now, I want to talk about you a little more personally, if we can, and humble you if possible.
Yes,
You
sir.
see, I believe that we learn the most from our failures in life, not necessarily our successes. Because the success, you may not know how you got there. But if you fail,
Yes,
or you screw up, like, you probably can figure out right quick what happened. So I'd
sir.
like to ask you, what is something that you have failed at, and what did you learn from it?
Um. Oh, I have a great example of this. Um. Look, exactly. Okay, something I definitely would turn around and mention to be a failure, and it's definitely something that hits home and a bit more personal for me, is that even though I did all of those things in the service, of course not a lot of people know that you still have to make weight, and you have to make height and weight requirement. And me being a stocky 5'6", 210 pound guy, like I'm kind of short for my size. I'm considered on the heavier side. So whereas a lot of people, turn around and got promotions for time and service or medals for things that they would have done for the simple fact that I didn't keep myself, for the simple fact that I didn't turn around and keep myself on track. It definitely cost me a couple of those. So and it came down to me turning around and just sitting in my room by myself. And I was actually going through the motions on actually quitting because I knew, like, I had been a big boy my entire life, and coming into the Marine Corps, it was an entire shift. So it didn't matter how fast I could run, how well I could shoot, whether I could take up a guy that was like 50 pounds more than me and run with him. For the simple fact that I was overweight, I didn't get any recognition. And the thing that turned out made me change it was that I was actually trying to eat well, but I was doing it to an extreme. Whereas whereas some people were trying to sit in the gym about like an hour. I remember being in a sauna suit, and I would only do three things, and that was go to the elliptical, go to the bicycle, and sit inside of a sauna suit. And I did I turned around and sat up, and I would repeatedly do those three things until my body was just fresh out of water. And I remember I completely sweated my body out, and somebody actually found me inside the sauna suit, inside the sauna room right before weigh-in. And I remember I was sweating my butt off for at least 20 hours straight. And even though I was eating well, I could outmaneuver most of the guys that were in the unit. I hopped on that scale, and I was still 3 pounds overweight.
Oh man. Well, thank you for sharing that.
And it turned around and bugged me. It turned to bug me to the point to where I was like, it wound up becoming a mantra for me to turn around and say that my strength was for me to use and for nobody else to abuse, because of course they have this program when you don't meet the requirements called the body composition program. And of course, it's a lot of tough training. It's a lot of tire flipping and all that good jazz. Absolutely none of it worked for me. So what I specifically asked for my leaders to go out and train me. And the way they trained me, it was totally different than what the standard program was. But after learning that I could pretty much learning that I could do whatever they required in that program and I would still fail it, I figured I would try that approach instead. And I actually wound up losing over 70 pounds within like a span of 4 months.
Wow.
So
Congratulations.
yes, sir. And no, look, I actually appreciate him. I'll never forget them to this day. Their names are Brandon Brown and Scott Inman. I'll never forget them to this day because I remember we were in the middle of Afghanistan, and it was 4 a.m. and I was on the treadmill, and I hated it for the life of me. I was at mile 5, and I turned and looked at Sergeant Brown, and I told him exactly why in the world am I putting myself through this to try to meet a standard. And he looked at me, and he said it so nonchalantly, but the way that he looked at me was like, hey, you might want to take a bit of a gem from this. And he said, don't do it for them, turn around and do it for you. And I would turn around and hear him inside my head from that point forward. While I was sitting up here, and I remember there was a 500-mile run competition that was out in the middle of Afghanistan. And every single time I even remotely thought about quitting or hopping off or saying, hey, I only wanted to do 2 miles a day, I would hear that in the back of my head, and it would turn around and just play. And there was just something inside of me that just made me drive even past my limits. I turned and said I was going to do 2 miles one day, and I got motivated enough and accidentally did 6. So I guess right there is the biggest takeaway from it. Like even in working hard and working on yourself, there are going to be times where you fail, but it's not for anybody else to turn around and judge or gauge. It's something for you to turn around and judge and gauge. And that's something I think a lot of people have a problem with. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people aren't willing to turn around and gut check themselves and double down on what it is they're weak on. And I turned and of course I'm saying like I sound like I'm very confident, but this is a bullet I had to eat a long time ago to be able to turn around and tell you the only way you're going to turn around and get better is if you turn around and actually double down on your weaknesses and face them head on instead of running from them. So
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you. It sounded a little hard there for a second. Thank you again.
it was.
Now, kind of on the flip side, what's something that you're working to improve on yourself today?
That I'm happy to have improved upon myself today.
What are you working on today to improve yourself?
Exactly what I'm working on today to improve myself is that I actually just recently bought the license to FL Studio because on top of making streams, I want to be able to produce my own music for those streams. And I've actually had the hardest time. I actually had the hardest time with it up until recently because of course my grandmother was a musician, so I've always trying to know a proper key or a proper sound whenever I hear it come out of a piano. My problem was that I would never be able to directly pick out exactly which tune it was in or exactly which chord it was in. So I've been working on that as of late, and I actually found a tool. It's called the Unison MIDI chord pad, and it's definitely helped me a lot. A lot of sounds I didn't even know that I could generate. I've been able to, and I've been having so much fun with it. I really have.
Very cool. I love it. All right. One more kind of fun question before we bring this in for a landing.
Yes, sir.
What is something that you think that people misunderstand about you the first time they meet you?
Something I feel is misunderstood. I am not as mean as I look. I am definitely not as mean as I look. I'm typically whenever I'm excited about something, I'm typically loud, and I don't try to be. It's completely by accident. So a lot of people take that or my directness of whenever I have a question for something, I'm probably going to come straight to you about it. And a lot of people don't like that directness, that hey, in your faceness. And I'm here to let you know I'm not that bad of a guy. You just have to walk up and talk to me. Typically, if I'm just sitting up here and I look like a bulldog in the face, I'm probably staring off in the distance thinking about something else.
I love it. All right, James, this has been a fantastic interview. How do people find you? Where are you at on social media? How do they contact you? All that.
You guys can find me at twitch.tv at monster forever _ and I pretty soon will have an Instagram and a Facebook that will be up for those pages as well. Of course, there is my standard Facebook page at James Peterson, and that will be just about it, sir.
Beautiful. All right, as we wrap this up, do you have any final thoughts you want to share or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
None, sir. I just wanted to tell you thank you personally for your time, and I hope to speak with you again.
You're very welcome, James. James, thank you so much. I genuinely do appreciate you taking the time to come on with me today.
No, thank you, sir.
All right. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.
Gamerpreneur.